Space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
A very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I am your host, Edmond, Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, did city traders achieve their objectives in their 3-day strike? What lessons can we derive from this strike and how it has been handled? Following a standoff between traders and bankers over the high interest rates, traders resolved to close down their businesses for 3 days, a move that prompted the intervention of President Museveni. Parliament, which was petitioned by the traders, failed to arrive at a solution. The Prime Minister's office also held a meeting, but this did not yield any results either. President Museveni later met them as well. In the first meeting, held at State House, no progress was made, but it is reported that traders left the International Conference Center at the Serena on Saturday with a lot of hope following promises by the President. The strike by traders has prompted many to wonder if only such actions, that is strikes, offer a chance for a remedy to challenges facing the country. It has been reported by the Owere, that's the Uganda Revenue Authority, that government lost up to 40 billion shillings in revenue during the strike, in potential revenue during the strike. A warning that if all groups that have grievances opted for strike action, the country would indeed be at a great loss. Trade unions have in the recent past pushed for a mechanism under which negotiations can be carried out, warning that the country faces a lot of pressure that could even result in bloody riots. These demands have again been re-echoed by those who believe that President Museveni should not be seen as the sole arbiter and ultimate voice on all issues. So tonight we seek to establish what progress the traders actually made following the 3-day strike and the lessons that we can learn from this matter and the way it was handled. Also, could this be the time to set up a negotiating mechanism, given the fact that there are other pressing demands on government, including salaries and now power tariffs? Our guests tonight, Mr. Evaristo Kayondo, Chairman of the KACITA, that's the Kampala City Traders Association. You're most welcome, Mr. Kayondo.
Thank you very much, and good evening, dear brothers and sisters.
We also expect to be joined by Mr. Wilson Owere, Chairman of the National Organization of Trade Unions, on NOTO. I'll announce him when he comes. Mr. Kayondo, what did you achieve from your strike?
Well, I can say we didn't achieve much if we are going by the objectives of the strike, because our major objective was to make sure that the banks return the borrowers' money back on the account, any money that was taken beyond the agreed amount at the time of loan disbursement. Then another one was to revert to the percentage interest rate as per the loan schedule, and we wanted these banks to revert to those schedules as opposed to the present schedules which have been hiked as a result of increased interest rate, which was a result of Bank of Uganda increasing the lending rate for the commercial banks. So that was the major objective. It was not actually achieved, but the message was actually received, and the concerned authorities at least got our message. These other complaints were subsidiary, like the number of charges which are imposed on the depositors or clients of the banks, and even the borrowers have several charges, like loan processing fee, which is charged as a percentage of the loan disbursed, and we thought there should be a standard figure. And there are some other computations which we agreed upon, which were referred to Bank of Uganda regarding the computation of the interest. That is, right now they are using a compound interest rate, meaning that even interest is producing interest.
Yes.
And we are saying they should go for simple interest calculation. And the Bank of Uganda has given us, in fact, initially they gave us 7 days. The days have now come down, I think, to 3 of them have been knocked off. We are remaining with about 4. and we think we should get an answer very soon regarding the computation of the interest rate. So the installments have been attracting interest on interest, and it was as if it was punitive to the borrowers that maybe they were defaulters, yet they had not defaulted. It is only the interest rate that has been hiked. Now in the computation of the new installments, they are compounding the interest, which is very unfortunate. And they are saying this is a standard practice all over the world, but we are yet to believe in them, and the Bank of Uganda will give us the answer very soon.
Would you do it again? Well, if you went back, having seen this experience, if you had seen it before you did it, would you go on strike?
Yes, we can go on strike, but right now what we have decided is to call back the strike off. Meanwhile, we are setting a new strategy because we thought we could get quick fixes of the issues as we were. In fact, we didn't know that it was to take government intervention, because in the first place, our complaints were not against the government, they were against the banks. And if it was the exploitation, so the government intervention which we expected and parliamentary intervention was to legislate against the of-exploitation. And we are saying, yes, look here, even if we are in a liberalized economy, definitely it doesn't mean that the government should go on a holiday and forget about the business community or the private players. They have a responsibility to oversee the operations, and if anything goes wrong, definitely they are responsible. And in our intervention, even the Bank of Uganda governor accepted that yes, the interventions and the measures which they have taken, because they had a number of options regarding macroeconomic stability. They have the physical and the monetary. Now even in the monetary, they have the exchange rate manipulation, especially after the collapse of the Bretton Woods. Those who went for floating exchange rate, they have either to go for a clean float or a dirty float. Uganda is one of those which went for a dirty float, meaning that you will need a foreign reserve to do the manipulation. Yes, to go into the market either to buy or sell. But if you go for a clean float, then things are quite different. You don't need to keep any reserves at the central bank.
Well, like the richer countries normally do, the US literally has almost, we'll look at that in more detail later. We've just been joined by our second guest, Mr. Wilson Owere, Chairman of NOTU, that's the National Organization of Trade Unions. You're most welcome, Mr. Owere.
Thank you, and good evening, Spectrum.
Well, yes. Mr. Owere, how would a trade union, a strong trade union movement, resolve such an impasse like the one we saw last week?
First of all, I want to commend KACITA, because in the normal circumstances, when you disagree, you normally go for an action, and the action taken by KACITA was actually what normally happens where there's disagreement. One, there are a lot of economic challenges Uganda is facing today, and though the government is trying to solve the problem, but I would say there is a problem in handling the economic policies in this country. One, I want to blame it on the government trying to get on every policy which is brought by IMF and World Bank, thinking that, when we went in for this structural adjustment, our government didn't realize that they were being put in a trap. And these are some of the things that we are. But the question you asked me, how would the trade union resolve such impasse? One, through dialogue.
Yes.
And through listening to each other, which I think KACITA and government have done.
All right. Let's go back a little bit to the root of the problem. Can you give us your own diagnosis, your own prognosis? What do you think was the cause of this problem?
The cause of this,
from the perspective of the trade unions,
the cause of this problem is that I think the government, through it is a Minister of Finance, their economic policy is not very good, in a way that they dance a lot to the tunes of IMF and World Bank. And these World Bank policies and IMF, it has failed almost everywhere. You remember when we had the world economic crisis?
Yes.
When we came back from International Labour Organization, we warned our government. We told them whether they want or not, this economic crisis is going to reach our country. And somehow, I think some people in the government were saying they rubbished us. I even remember talking about it in our this program.
Yes.
And we looked at areas, you know, Uganda per se, we need to have a policy which government, like now the government has almost liberalized almost everything.
Yes.
You find that the policy now, the government is not in charge of the economy, and that is the biggest problem.
Yes, go on.
Now, you cannot liberalize everything.
Yes.
Because where you have a problem, economic problem, the government is supposed to intervene. Like you see in Britain, you see in America, and so on. Obama several times has been even pumping money. But now, instead, you even have to kneel before the banks and tell them, please help us and reduce the what? The interest rate.
Yes.
Because you no longer control the what? Now, you saw what is happening. The president is now pleading with the business people. Now go into exports and so on and so on. You know, that kind of thing. So we need government to live somewhere where they have money. They can intervene. They have where you really have a reserve. Now, for example, tell me, what is now the relevance of Bank of Uganda?
Go on.
In fact, for me, if I was the president today, I would sack both Mutabile and
who?
And Kasekende.
Why?
They have failed.
How have they failed?
How would you fail to control inflation?
Well, let's get this clearly. Again, back to you, Mr. Kayondo. When you went on strike the last time, towards in the third quarter of last year, if I remember correctly, you said the shilling had lost a lot of value. Then the central bank institutes measures which bite because their interest rates go up, using the fiscal tool that the central bank has, and then you begin to complain. What did you want?
No. When we went for strike in the second quarter of last year, the problem which was being complained about was the volatility of the exchange rate.
Yes.
It was not the exchange rate per se, but we wanted
the weak shilling.
No, not actually the weak shilling. Even if the shilling was at 30 and it had 3,000 and it had stabilized at that, so that would not be a very big problem.
Yes.
The yen does exist, and we know that it is weak, but at least it can be weak and it's predictable.
Right.
But the volatility brings about the element of unpredictability.
True.
And if you look, both will be disadvantaged, the exporters and importers, because you can't predict. As you are taking up a negotiation, if you are an exporter, you don't know at what rate you will exchange locally.
Yes.
Then the importer himself also had a problem. You can't predict. As you are taking up maybe orders from outside, again, you can't predict at what price you will bring these goods. And definitely we had also a problem because there is because taxation in Uganda depends upon the exchange rate that is prevailing at the time of import.
Yes.
So again, there is also predictability of the taxes. Unpredictability
Yes.
because of the volatility. So this is why we are saying, look here, since you as Bank of Uganda, you have the mandate to stabilize the economy.
Please act.
Please act.
And they began to act.
They tried.
Well, they actually they instituted the inflation targeting mechanism.
Well, you can say that, but right now, what has happened, and I think we should put the records correct. This is what it has been the real trend from maybe as far as 1990. I've been following this trend because I've been importing and I've been dealing international trade. And during Christmas season,
yes,
usually we have a lot of remittances from outside.
True.
And because of those remittances,
the shilling
usually strengthens.
Rather.
Yes, it's appreciated during December and even during January again, because you see these remittances, some of them they do some real estate purchase and development of those plots that they have acquired. So because of those remittances, there is an appreciation of the shilling.
Yes.
But come March and up May, April, you will see another deterioration. Yes, the shilling will be weakening.
Yes.
So the results which we have right now in the strengthening the shilling is not actually as a result of the macroeconomic reports of the Bank of Uganda.
It was intended to mop up shillings, and the money supply M2 has agreed.
And in fact, that is where the point of contention was with KACITA. If you are intending to mop up excess cash, and that is a discouragement which you should make on new borrowers, not already old borrowers.
Right.
With the old borrowers, why should you punish them? What is your intention with the old borrowers?
Right.
That's the biggest question. Because we are saying, yes, if you are intending to discourage new borrowers and you don't want more money to come into circulation, then you hike this
interest rates on the new loans.
On the new loans.
Not on the old
ones. The existing loans, what are you doing with them? And what is the cost of an old loan to the bank?
Right.
These are the questions.
It's already running.
Yes. So this is where I wanted, this was the major problem, or where I wanted the government to prevail over the banks and tell them, please, actually this is exploitation, because if you look at the schedules, person who was supposed to pay 51 million per month is asked to pay 71 million per month. An increase of
51 to 71.
Yes, 20 million. And if you computed and critically analyzed these figures, because of the 51, this person was paying around 32 million in terms of interest.
Interest alone is 32.
Yes. And the rest was
the
principal. But with the new schedule, the interest rose from 25 million to 47 million. And he is only paying about it went up to 59 million, and only 11 million was attributed to principal recovery. So they are reducing the amount of money which you are paying on principal, and they are increasing their interest.
Right.
And we are telling Bank of Uganda and the government that, look here, these are people who are going to create what we call in financial management perpetual annuities. These are the loans which will never be cleared until maybe even your grandchildren will continue paying, because what you are paying as installment is actually interest, not repayment of principal.
It's not affecting the principal.
Yes.
Mr. Owere.
Yes.
What would you do differently?
Yeah, the fact is, as I told you, that apart from Bank of Uganda, which bank do we control? Now, Bank of Uganda, as he rightly said, you cannot get 51 million and then they tell you to pay 72 million. Now,
So the argument is on the old loan. They really should not have raised interest rates on the old loan.
Yes.
exactly.
And principally, if
And you're saying the central bank should have put its foot down and said no new interest on all loans.
Actually, they are the ones I even suspect. They are the ones who advise them.
Well, what do they have to benefit?
Because they are now trying to control, and you know, by trying to control inflation, Bank of Uganda at first they made two currencies, which is now actually
running concurrent.
Well, they say that it's really one currency, but in different.
That one, even my grandfather down there, even my father was telling me, what is the essence of the Bank of Uganda running two currencies at the what?
At the center. Well,
You know, these are some of the things that
it's not for me to explain some of these things. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. Did City achieve their objective in the 3-day strike? What lessons can we derive from this strike and how it has been handled? We're going for a break. We'll be back to stay tuned.
Access to the internet is a universal human right, along with access to water and food. Like the UN, we believe that every Ugandan should enjoy this right. We believe that access to information, education, and improved communication through the internet will build this great nation. And it is because of what we so strongly believe that we are giving every single MTN customer 10 megabytes of free data on their mobiles. And everyone can start experiencing it now.
Follow us on facebook.com/MTNUG or twitter.com/MTNUgandaCare. This announcement was brought to you by MTN.
John, Mike and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to one like John, who made a difference. You enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the sauce. Nile Special.
You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
For all your insurance covers, Statewide Insurance Company Limited is the answer. We cover your motor third party, workers' compensation, health, travelers' personal and marine accidents, funeral expenses, fire and special perils insurance policies, and many others. You are at risk only if you're not insured by SWICO. We are located at Shua House, Plot 1, Bombo Road, Kampala, with branches in Entebbe, Jinja, Mbarara, Mbale, Masaka, Gulu, and Iganga.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. Did city traders achieve their objective in their 3-day strike? What lessons can we derive from this strike and how it has been handled? Our guests tonight, Mr. Evaristo Kayondo, Chairman of KACITA, that's the Kampala City Traders Association, and Mr. Wilson Owere, Chairman of the Workers, that's the National Organization of Trade Unions.
Chairman General.
Chairman General. They have
There are so many chairmen, so this is the Chairman General.
Chairman General. You will be able to call in and contribute to these discussions. I'll read out the telephone numbers when that time comes. Mr. Kayondo, what next?
Yeah, as I was trying to explain that you can look at interest rate increase as a way of mopping up excess cash.
Yes.
But at the same time, the argument is it could easily be interpreted as a disinvestment.
Yes.
Because I was trying to put it to the governor that look here, in Uganda, the type of inflation which we have is actually different from the usual inflation where we have too much money chasing too few goods.
Yes.
And I defined the present inflation as a stagflation.
Stagflation, yes.
Which is a combination of stagnation and inflation.
Yes.
In his argument as governor, he was saying, no. In this interest rate application which we are using, there are some sectors which are affected. And when he enumerated the sectors which are affected, he was naming the KACITA, which is trade. He was naming factories, which is manufacturing, that is also affected negatively. Then agriculture is also affected negatively. And he didn't mention which areas are affected positively. But you can read, because I have the data. What is affected positively is actually the banking sector, the communication sector, those who are in communication, like the MTN, Warido, name it,
yes,
the Airtel, those are actually gaining. But if you look at the population distribution of Uganda,
more people are in trade,
more people are in agriculture, trade, and if so, in the macroeconomic approach, and you want to attain full employment, you might not reach there, but at least
you attack this other side.
Yes, so you should attack
agriculture, trade.
Exactly. So if you are using a measure, a tool which is discouraging, which is bringing disinvestment in these areas, then you are using a different, a very wrong tool, which is not pro people, which is not going to help the economy.
Right.
So, and this is why when you measure the Gini coefficient, which measures the distribution of income in the country, you'll find that we are at 0.475,
right,
which is high.
Right.
Meaning that there is disparity, the rich are too rich and the poor are too poor.
Right.
And these are the areas which Bank of Uganda, which our governor should be attacking. And today in one of the papers, this is where I have read that they are intending in Bank of Uganda to employ more researchers,
right,
and to strengthen the research department
in the central bank.
Yes, which is very necessary and it is key. Right now, this is why they are touching wrong buttons for the economy, and that's why we are bleeding.
Well, and of course, most of the growth comes from infrastructure investment, things like the Owere Falls Dam, roads, and Bujagali. So a lot of the growth figures that we see, 5.5%, 6.5%, and the projected 4.5% or 5.5% is mostly in infrastructure, which does not affect the livelihoods of some of the people, sustainable livelihoods.
Exactly, and this is where we have problem, and we are saying let them apply the tools which will help more people and bring more people into play in the economy, so that they can access the wealth and they are engaged in production, so that we can all grow together, rather than having sectoral good development which is
lopsided,
which is one-sided.
Of course, that's the outside of the mandate of the central bank at the moment. Unless they are given new powers, they're only mandated to tackle demand side. That's what they're doing, foster price stability.
But the Ministry of Finance is here to do the fiscal side.
So the central bank is free. Now it's the finance minister, the government, which should act to address the supply side, stimulating growth. Mr. Owere.
This month, one thing Edmond, one thing I've realized that there is no proper coordination in government cycle. When you look at Minister of Finance, Bank of Uganda, you find that they operate differently. These two departments are supposed to work together in tackling these economic policies. Like now, when this issue came up, now I want even to tell you that there is nobody in government who is more technical in negotiation.
What do you mean?
But I've experienced it when we had a strike with the teachers.
What did you experience?
And one thing was that you find that the ministries were not even coordinated. You find Minister of Education is talking differently, Minister of Finance. For example, let me tell you, the teachers put their demand on table.
Yes.
And who was the ministry responsible? That was public service, because that was the
which pays salaries.
Yes. Now you find that Minister of Public Service would push blame to Minister of Education.
Yes.
Minister of Education would tell you it is finance. Then finance will tell you, but this is a labor issue. So you find that there's
go to the Minister of Labor, Gender, and something else.
Now, such a problem where KACITA was now engaging government. Government should have appointed a negotiator to negotiate with the KACITA. Somebody who is highly technical. political, somebody who is able to explain to the country. Now, Minister of they call it Minister of Information,
yes,
should be in touch with this person to be able to actually.
I think this is Europe. Go on.
No, this is how it's supposed to be.
Go on, sir.
Because today is KACITA, tomorrow
is Africa. Only 50 years of independence.
No. But
50 years is old enough.
It's actually even more. Now, we need people who can sit and negotiate and be able to tell people. Because this thing, I told you that we were expecting economic crisis about 3-4 years ago. Now, Minister of Finance should have been preparing people for this kind of thing. You tell them we are now, this thing is in Europe, but here it may come. But you know, some people are even laughing at that. You people, when you see something happen in Europe, you also think it is going to come here. These are where we have problems. The economic hardship we are experiencing now is because of the technocrats in the ministries. They were well aware.
You say they could have prevented this?
Exactly.
How would they have prevented it?
We have people who are employed by the government.
Well, how would they have done it? Talk to us about that.
How they would have done it?
Yes.
First of all, when you know you have a problem in the future, you start preparing.
Specifically for this problem, how would they have done it?
By the way, they would have...
Oil prices going, how would they have done it?
There are so many things we would have done. First of all, you talk to the leaders, find out, you put the problem on the table. Actually, it should have been the government to have come first.
But to help my brother,
yes.
Look, if you look at the statistics which we have and the inflation which you have, the composition of the CPI,
yes,
cost price index,
yes,
you'll find that the biggest component is food, which is food.
Yeah.
And
77%.
Yes, if it's food, and what is the contributing factor of food? Because right now they are saying, right now the food prices have been contributing the biggest chunk of inflation in Uganda. And
at a certain point, food inflation went up as well.
Yes. Now look, do we have granaries? What have we done to prevent post-harvest losses in the villages?
Yes.
What have we done to ensure that there is water and we don't rely on rainfall in the for agricultural output?
Water dams in the villages.
Yes, they should be there. Look at the extension workers. Go to where they are supposed to be trained. You go to Bukalasa. You go to Kayondo
Agriculture Institute.
These are just things that
the research center Kayondo lost. They had planted beans, research an improved variety to fight disease.
Yes.
They said we won't build houses there.
Yes. You see? These are the issues
over the holidays.
Because we should have these extension workers. You can't say you want to modernize agriculture when these people are not there.
So some of the priorities are wrong.
Exactly. The research centers would be doing a lot of work. We could be having those resistant varieties.
Resistant fast maturing,
exactly,
yielding.
These would be here. But if you go to these research centers and training institute, they will tell you that all of the facilities have gone to dogs.
Yeah, actually, most of the farm institutes which used to support agriculture were now closed down, or some have been turned into something else. And these are some of the problems. Because when you look at, you are asking me, government should work at the basic needs of the people.
Like
there are
what?
about 9 of them.
Like what?
First of all, food, what he's talking about.
Government gives people food.
No. You need to empower people so that they can grow food. They have enough food. You have granaries in our...
How do you empower them specifically?
Actually, when I was growing up, we used to have as a chief, the father of...
who reminds you to grow food for your family?
All the leaders would now tell people on how it's important to have food.
Comes shouting in the village parts.
Exactly.
You want them to do that.
Compulsory. Actually, we had a Saza chief who was very, very strict. You would camp in an area and make sure that people grow. You don't even allow people to play more. So
but this is a free economy, liberalized.
You know, that is the biggest problem I have with
people prefer to do sports betting. Go on.
You know, but why are we benefiting from that?
Go on, sir.
You see, there are certain people, like now we have airtime, you have food, you have electricity, you have water,
utilities,
you have transport, networks, where you really look at our railway system. These are some of the things that is supposed to revamp the economy of this country. Tell me, if you now rehabilitate a railway from Kasese up to Pakwaji,
yes,
how many jobs are you going to generate?
Because it's cheaper to transport things.
How much food is even going to be cheaper in Kampala? Because somebody will come from Kasese, bring all the food from there cheaply, and even
capture. I don't know what they grow there.
Are you getting my point?
Right.
These are some.
So some government made a big mistake to over-liberalize.
Exactly.
Because they sold the railway system as well.
Exactly.
Power was sold, 2/3 of it.
Now the infrastructure which is now being built.
The central bank, the commercial bank was also sold. Now they abolished ATMs in some places. Go on.
I've seen the president is blaming politicians on the dams and so on, but we should now go in seriously and make sure we have electricity, because this is where you are going to actually revamp.
They're working on that already.
But you know, Edmond, there are a lot of things which we need to sort out. Because the level of corruption which is now eating out our society. And I have a problem with technocrats, because sometimes they deceive the politician and they come out and tell lies on what is not even there.
Somebody was saying today we should export those technocrats who are not very, very honest, send them to international bodies. This is Spectrum on Radio. I don't know whether it's the right thing to do or not. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number 0414-348-111, 031-226-0390, 031-226-1390. When you call in, please tell us your name and where you're calling from. Spectrum, hello? Hello? Yes, go on, Mr. Owere.
Yeah, so when you look at some of the, like I was telling you about the railway. The railway is
okay, let's hear from our first caller. Spectrum, hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Mohammed Balgi is my name.
Yes.
We shall talk and talk and talk. Unless we correct the political mistakes in this country, nothing will come to light in this country. Simply because it's the politics that drives the social and economic aspects of life. Wherever, any country we find the political system sick, the economic and social aspects of life suffer the result. Thank you.
Spectrum, hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
My name is Paul Mdambe.
Paul, could you switch off your radio? Go on.
Okay, I'm calling from Missouri.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Kayondo for being articulate. You know, some people think that we businessmen are not studied, but he has come up very well. The question is whether KACITA is. I think there is a big argument. First of all, there has been cohesion in the traders. You remember, we all stood together. The shops were closed. They told us 3 days, but even we were able to go for the 4th day. That one shows that there is KACITA can bring traders together. The other thing is that at first the governor of Bank of Uganda, Mr. Mutebere, used to say that I cannot do anything about this. Now it has changed. They are saying in 5 days something is going to be done. Therefore, I think there has been a big achievement. Lastly, I would like to disagree with Mr. Owere, who is putting the blame on technocrats. I think the technocrats have been disappointed by the politicians. A case in point is where Mr. Mutebere advised the president not to purchase the planes, as reported in the New Times of UK, and he opposed it. So I think the problem lies with the politician, not the technocrats. Thank you.
Spectrum, hello. Of course, the central bank is not an expert on security. Yes, sir, name?
That's my name.
Yes.
You know, I have had this
from Mr. Owere that if at all there is a revival of the railway transport, he can as well as in a way of job creation. But I would love to ask him, how many companies have we seen that they have been maybe reintroduced, but when you look at the structure, the staff structure, it is made up of a number of people hailing from one part of the country. Do you think that one can serve the whole nation? Thank you.
Spectrum, hello. We lost that caller. Yes, when you call in, please tell us your name and where you are calling from. Yes, Mr. Owere. Okay. Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Your name?
My name is Joseph. Joseph.
Yes, Joseph.
I'm calling from Machindi. Now, the question I want to ask is, they are always saying they want to mop up excess cash. Where did that cash come from? And how did it come into the economy if they knew it was excess? Thank you.
Our final caller. Yes, Spectrum, hello.
Hello, good evening, Edmond.
Good evening. Yes, your name again? Yes, Peter.
Edmond, I greet your guests and I would like to thank you for steering the spectrum. Edmond, I want to suggest that there is a need for innovation. There is need for our departments of agriculture, departments of industry, investment, and the National Planning Authority, most importantly, because this is now sometimes the problems we are having are a planning problem. We need to see how these institutions can work together to create innovation or support innovative ideas that can create employment, that can boost or bolster the productive sectors of our economy, agriculture, industry, manufacturing, and also areas of semi-skilled employment. You go to an area like bananas, Edmond, if you go to the Uganda Industrial Research Institute, banana stones can help in the production of cloth and paper. And if we can stimulate this kind of sector innovation from Uganda Industrial Research Institute, it can have a huge employment factor for semi-skilled and skilled labor. So we need to revitalize areas that can create growth in the economy and can create employment. One of the biggest factors we're having in terms of frustration and the largest part of our population is unemployment. And this must be tackled very, very urgently, Edmond. Thank you very much.
Let's get straight back to the studio. Mr. Owere, yes. Unemployment touches you directly.
Yeah, unemployment touches me direct, and that has been the quarrel between me and the government, because the policy which is now in place does not favor creating employment, because we have now a unemployment policy, but the ministries which are concerned have failed to coordinate. You find that now Minister of Finance comes out, they say they want to create employment. How does Minister of Finance create employment? Yeah. They are supposed to coordinate with the Minister of Education, Minister of Labor, and by the way, I've been talking about Minister of Labor being a full-fledged ministry.
You wanted Minister of Labor?
Yes.
Nothing else?
Nothing else. Where you have Minister of Labor planning for that kind of jobs.
Yes.
Now, Minister of Finance, its job is physical planning for the future, and trying to do what now KACITA is trying to work. Now, for the rest of the Minister of Education is supposed to coordinate, and that we put it very clearly in the National Employment Policy, which is supposed to guide the government.
You've written down an employment policy?
Yes, it is there. It was actually put in place. That was 1st May last year.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be a directive from the government, actually from the cabinet, directing all these institutions to coordinate and now make this policy work. And this is because everything is now in print. It is there. The policy, the National Employment Policy is there. Now, when you look at the Minister of Labor, it's just a department within Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, where you have put the elderly, the children, the disabled,
the women
issues. how do you connect gender issue with the employment? How do you know, they are not even related at all. So these are some of the things, and I agree with the Wamboka that these departments must work together, coordinate, and push these economic policies forward.
All right. Very briefly,
I agree with Paul that KACITA, actually I want to thank you because you made actually the governor, who was actually very arrogant. You know, some of these people, they think they own the country. The country is for the people.
And yet they don't own it?
No, they don't own. It is the people who own the country. And that's where the president beats them. President has never thrown the ladder. He climbed.
Yes.
To reach where he is.
The common man.
The common man.
Whether it's border
some of these people, the ministers and some technocrats, when they come to the public, they think they own this country. No. This country belongs to the people.
And the people owns it.
And when the people decide that they no longer need you, you can't hide.
They should learn from His Excellency. Go on, Mr. Kayondo.
Yeah, thank you. I wish to agree with Paul that sincerely one of the achievements of the strike was the cohesion which we showed. And indeed, the governor was, as my brother has said, was quite arrogant at first, and he was putting a fine face on the whole business. But at least when the message reached him, because he was predicting other increases in interest rate in 2012, right now he has predicted otherwise. The
rates are going to fall.
Yes, that the rates are within the next 2 months, the rates are going to fall. Now these predictions have all of a sudden changed because of this strike.
Shuttered shops.
So definitely the cohesion was there. Chachambrus was asking how the railway can create jobs, and they was saying maybe it could be one tribe. But the message is railway transport is very cheap.
Yes.
And once it is very cheap, it's a factor of production that once transport is cheap, even the end products will become cheap.
Right.
So all of us will enjoy those cheap supplies.
Because of the railway.
Because of the railway. So we should support it very seriously. It was constructed in 1900, and we have been around for over 100 years, and we are wondering why we should actually be putting it off instead of improving it. Then the issue of Joseph, where he says Bank of Uganda is talking about excess cash. Unfortunately, we are on a radio, but if you look at this curve,
yes.
You will see that the growth in domestic revenue, the money supply, domestic revenue is actually very gentle.
Yes.
And the growth in expenditure, supplementary expenditure,
is heaven.
It's exponential. It is exponential if it is a mathematical term. And we will see how this one has been created since 2009, and it went through the roof in 2011. So there has been over expenditure, and this expenditure definitely which was not backed by production,
and it has
been they want to win more people, but definitely it wasn't spread evenly in the population. So this is why the population which never received this excess cash,
they are mapping in the wrong place.
They are mapping in the wrong place. And when it comes to Peter, he was talking about innovation. This is very important. But when you are to innovate, definitely you need to first get the concepts right, and then you will innovate after getting. This is why countries like the US, they are putting so much money in research.
Yes.
And their first degrees might not be so good, but their second and third degrees are very important to the economy,
right,
because they are emphasizing on research. And once you have a very strong research, even if it is a company with a very good research department, your chances of survival are very high. Otherwise, depending on because in Uganda we usually use the foreign strategy,
right,
how has X succeeded, and then you try to imitate him,
right,
it might not be very very much of help. So I totally agree with Peter.
We have to go. Thank you very much, Mr. Evaristo Kayondo, Chairman of KACITA, that's the Kampala City Traders Association. Thank you for coming to Spectrum. Mr. Wilson Owere, Chairman General of NOTU, that's the National Organization of Trade Unions. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Up next is the news in English. Do stay tuned.
Fellow Ugandans, the United Nations has declared that access to the